Now, hopefully you're enjoying the Bill Pete stories that I've been reading you in this class and that you've been reading by yourself. But sometimes students can be a little bit intimidated by Bill Pete as an author because he tends to use a lot of really big words in his writing. He uses a lot of very advanced vocabulary. I want to read you one more story. It's a fun story called Jethro and Joel Were a Troll. And this story also has some advanced vocabulary. And I want to practice a few techniques for figuring out the words that are in the story. And I want to practice a few techniques for figuring out difficult words in the story. They call this technique using context clues, and I bet you've done it before. Context clues are when you use some of the words around the word that's really difficult to figure out a good guess for what the difficult word means. So even if you don't know that difficult word, a lot of times you can make a pretty good guess at what it probably means. Let me show you an example right on the first page of the story Jethro and Joel Were a Troll. So let's start reading and then we'll stop and work on those context clues. So once upon a time, there was a gigantic two-headed turnip-eating troll named Jethro and Joel, who lived in a pine forest high up on a mountainside. Since the people in the valley far below never ventured up into the forest, no one but the birds, rabbits, and squirrels knew the huge monster was living there. So let's stop there for a sec. Do you see this sentence that I just read here? There's a word ventured, which is a little bit tricky. You might know what this word means, but you might not. However, if you read the sentence and use the words around ventured, you can kind of figure out what it must mean. Let's look at it again. It says, since the people in the valley far below never ventured up into the forest, no one but the birds, rabbits, and squirrels knew the huge monster was there. Take 30 seconds and with a partner, see if you can make a good guess as to what this word means. Ready? Let's turn and talk. So I bet a lot of you never knew what the word ventured mean. So I bet some of you wouldn't know what the word ventured means if I just said, hey, what does ventured mean? You might have difficulty answering. But using the words around the word ventured in this sentence, you can kind of figure out that it just means like go or went or went up there or something like that. They never went up to the forest, so only the birds and the rabbits and squirrels knew that the monster was there. You probably won't always be right when you guess based on context clues, but a lot of times you will be. Let's keep going with the story and we'll see if we can find any more context clue mysteries to solve. Their life was simple as could be, with nothing to do but clear the weeds out of their turnip patch every day, and they could have lived there happily forever if Joel, one of the two heads of the troll, if Joel hadn't been so grumpy and miserable. This is no fun, Joel grumbled. A horrible monster like us should be out rampaging around the countryside, stirring up trouble. Now here Bill Pete actually provided a clue. At the end of the sentence. It says, a horrible monster like us should be out rampaging around the countryside. And then he puts comma, stirring up trouble. That's a big clue. Turn and talk with a partner. See if you can figure out what rampaging means. Ready? Turn and talk. So the clue, stirring up trouble, basically tells you what rampaging means. Rampaging means like running around stirring up trouble. So again, if I had just said, hey, what does rampaging mean? You might have known, but you might not have known. But in this sentence, you can use the clues to figure it out. Joel even grumbled in his sleep after they settled down in their cave at night, while Jethro stayed awake and worried. He knew that Joel would keep on grumbling until sooner or later he finally had his way. I'm fed up, roared Joel one morning. No more puttering in the turnip patch for me. Today I'm going on a rampage no matter what. If you must, said Jethro with a sigh, then go on your rampage. The troll is all yours for today. But remember, just for today, and that's all. It's kind of hard when you share the body of a troll with somebody else who wants to do something different with the troll. One day is plenty, chortled Joel. Whoopity-doopity. And off down the mountainside went the gigantic troll with wild-eyed Joel in full control. He was eager to make the most of his day, and he kept the troll going at full gallop all the way down the valley. Oh boy, look at this. Joel was hoping to meet a mob of riled-up farmers armed with pitchforks, ready for battle. Then he could have some fun and show off the enormous brute strength of the troll. But one glimpse of the huge monster lumbering across the field sent the farmers and all their animals into a wild panic. We won't do a turn and talk on this one, but I bet you can guess it says, one glimpse of the huge monster lumbering across the field sent the farmers and their animals into a wild panic. You could probably guess that lumbering means something like running or running slowly or moving or something like that. Because what else could they be doing across the fields? So it pretty much has to be something like running. Now in a frenzy they went racing helter-skelter to find a safe hiding place, and in a twinkle and a trice there wasn't a living soul in sight. When Joel found the farms all deserted and no chance for a battle, he was furious. "Come out and fight," he bellowed. "Come out, you ninnies, you little twerps, you yellow-bellied pipsqueaks." So here you can kind of guess that those are all like insults, like ninnies, twerps, yellow-bellied pipsqueaks. But none of the insulting things he thought of could bring anyone out. The farmers were hiding in their cellars with their families, and they had no intention of facing the huge troll. In a red-eyed, snorting fury, Joel went tearing around the countryside, uprooting scarecrows, squashing pumpkins, and kicking over haystacks. But after his rampaging all through the morning and into the afternoon, the only one who dared put up a fight was a feisty little red rooster. All right, we'll see what fight the little red rooster can put up a little bit later when we finish the story and practice a few more context clues. All right, we'll see what kind of fight that little red rooster can put up a little bit later when we finish the story, Jethro and Joel Were a Troll. Now today we're going to spend some time working on our book gallery projects because later on, the parents are going to be coming to the class to see the book gallery project. So we have to make sure that we're finished. Remember that if you finish one book project, check in with your teacher and see if your teacher wants you to start another one. If there's enough time to do another small project, then you'll work on a second project. If your teacher feels like there's not enough time to finish a second project, then you can read some Bill Peet books that you haven't read yet. Okay, so we're going to work for about 35 minutes on our book gallery projects, and then we'll finish up Jethro and Joel. Let's begin. Now, if you remember when we left off, Jethro and Joel, well, especially Joel, was rampaging around the countryside, tearing up everything and causing all kinds of problems. But a little red rooster was very brave. Let's see what the rooster can do. Okay, we'll finish up Jethro and Joel a little bit later, and we'll see what happens to the countryside and to the troll. All right, we're going to finish up Jethro and Joel. We're a troll now, and see if we can find a couple more context clues to solve. So let's continue. Jethro, who had been no more than an unhappy spectator, finally spoke up. Why don't we call it a day? There's no one on earth foolish enough to battle a monster as gigantic and frightening as we are. An army of knights might give us a battle, said Joel, with a devilish grin. He had spied a towering castle across a meadow just a stone throws away. An army of knights might give us a battle, said Joel, with a An army of knights might give us a battle, said Joel, with a devilish grin. He had spied a towering castle across a meadow. An army of knights might give us a battle, said Joel, with a devilish grin. He had spied a towering castle across a meadow just a stone throw away. This ought to stir them up, he muttered, as he seized a huge boulder in their powerful paws, and with a mighty heave he sent it flying straight for the castle. If I had said, what does heave mean, you might not know, but turn and talk with a partner. See if you can figure it out from the context clues. Ready? Turn and talk. All right, we're going to find out what it means on this next page. There was a thundering, resounding boom as the boulder smashed into the castle wall, and the two towers tumbled down into the moat. For a minute there was a stony silence, and it seemed as if the castle was deserted. And then, suddenly, heads appeared at the windows, and people were shouting, "Monster! Monster! Look out! Look out there! There's a horrible monster out there!" Then, to Joel's delight and Jethro's dismay, out across the drawbridge came all the king's men on their snorting war horses, and with their lances aimed straight for the troll's huge belly. Sometimes one of the best context clues is actually the picture. So in this case, they came with their lances. You might not know what a lance is, but you can see from the picture exactly what a lance is. It's kind of like a long weapon that you can use to like puncture somebody with. "We're done for," cried Jethro. "We're done for, and it serves you right." And they would have been done for if the troll hadn't been as quick as a 20-ton cat. In a flash, the monster dropped to the ground, and all the knights and horses went flying topsy-turvy over the troll's huge back, ending up in a heap. Then, before the knights knew what happened, the troll scooped them all up in one big bunch. "Ho, ho," chortled the joyful Joel. "Now look who's done for. Now who's going to make a big splash?" And he was about to toss them into the moat when Jethro rebelled. "No, no," Jethro shouted. "We can't drown them. We can't be that mean. No, no, no. Enough is enough. You've had your day." Flump! The huge troll suddenly slumped to the ground, and all the knights and horses went sprawling every which way. Then Jethro shouted towards the castle, "Hello in there! Come on out, everybody! We quit! We give up! We surrender!" "Are you sure?" called the king from a window of his wrecked castle. "Are you sure this isn't a trick?" "No tricks," replied Jethro. "No fooling." Then the king with his queen, followed by armed guards and members of the court, came trooping over the drawbridge, and as they approached the troll, the king said, "I hope you are both aware of the penalty for damaging royal property." "No," said Jethro, "but we'll be happy to pay." "Good," said the king. "Then it's off with your heads." "Oh no," whimpered Joel. "No, no, that's too much." "He's right," said Jethro. "That is a bit too much. But maybe we could even things up by repairing all the damage, if someone will just show us how." "All right, it's a deal," said the king, and he called for his royal architect and master castle builder. "Fabian! Fabian!" Pretty soon Fabian, a bearded old fellow, came doddering over the drawbridge with a bundle of castle plans and spread them out for the troll to see. This is a good one, doddering. So you can kind of tell from the context that it must be like walking, doddering over the drawbridge. But you can also kind of guess that since it's an old man, and he does look in the picture like very old and feeble, that doddering must mean like walking, but walking kind of like slowly, like an old person might. Now pretty soon Fabian, a bearded old fellow, came. Then Fabian explained every detail of castle building, how the timbers and cross beams fitted together, and how the stonework was done. Since 2 heads were better than 1, the troll learned quickly, and since 2 heads were better than 1, the troll learned quickly, and within an hour Jethro and Joel were busily rebuilding the walls and tumble-down towers they had demolished. With no need for ladders or scaffolds, the giant troll worked amazingly fast. All they needed was a few men to mix the mortar to cement the stones together, and in just 3 days' time the castle was completely restored. Then the crowd that had gathered to watch the gigantic construction worker gave the troll a tremendous ovation, praising them to the skies. "Terrific troll!" they shouted. "Magnificent monster! Tremendous! Fantastic! Stupendous!" Such extravagant praise was too much for Jethro and Joel, and it all went to their heads. They were so proud of their newfound talent that they decided to make a career of it. From that day on, Jethro and Joel were master castle builders. They traveled around the countryside, building castles for just about everyone. Since the troll had no use for gold or silver, they were paid with a big sack of turnips. And at that price, even the poorest of families could afford a castle. So it finally could truly be said throughout the land, every man's home is a castle. And that's the end of Jethro and Joel Were a Troll. After that sad ending with the Wump World, I was kind of glad to read a happy ending this time. We're going to continue to work on our book gallery projects to get ready for today for about 20 minutes. And then I want to meet to talk a little bit about the presentations when the parents come today. So, so here's the work order for this period of time, and let's begin. Okay, so the parents are coming today to see the book gallery projects, which is very exciting. I think they're going to really like the work that you've done. So you want to do a couple of things before they come. Number one, you want to try to get to a point where you're finished with your project before they come. If for some reason you're just like way behind and you're having trouble finishing, then see if you can kind of find like a natural place to like cut the project. And you could write like "to be continued" or something of that sort. The second thing you want to do is make sure that your work looks really beautiful. So your teacher might have some suggestions for you, like please add some more color here, or try not to have so much white space here, or something like that, to just improve your projects a little bit more to make sure they're ready for the book gallery. Now, as you finish your book gallery projects, your teacher is going to hang up the projects all around the room in different spots. And the idea is that when the parents come into the room, they're going to go to different spots around the room in the gallery to look at different projects. They're going to spend about a minute or a minute and a half at each project, and then they're going to rotate to the next project. So your teacher will be asking the parents to rotate every minute and a half or so to a new project. So sometimes you might be talking to somebody you know, but sometimes you'll be talking to a parent that you don't know and presenting your work to them. Now, what do I mean by presenting your work? Well, you want to kind of you want to talk about your book gallery project to each parent who comes to your station to visit your project. So for instance, if you made a story map then when the parents come to your station, you're going to describe your story map. You're going to tell all about it, show the different places in the story map, explain what happened at each place, and kind of stretch out your answer so you have a lot to say. You wouldn't want to just be there and be like, hi, yeah, this is my story map. I hope you like it. That wouldn't really be enough. You want to try to like really describe it well and talk for that whole like minute and a half that they're there. So you should have a lot to say about your project. If your project was a story, like a monster story or an autobiography, you're probably not going to have enough time to read each of the projects to all of the parents. So in that case, you're probably not going to have enough time to read the project to each parent that comes by. So you're going to kind of describe your story to them instead of reading it word by word. Same thing if you wrote a book for a kindergartner, you might not have time to read the whole thing in a minute and a half, so you're going to kind of show it to them and describe it. I've talked with your teacher about any groups that decided to do a play. If you decided to do a play, your teacher will talk with you about how you're going to go about presenting that. Okay, that project's a little bit different from the others, so we have some special ways that we're going to work on that one. That project's a little bit different from the other projects, so we have to present it a little bit differently. Remember to be confident as the parents come by, speak in a nice loud voice, make eye contact with them when you're talking, and most important of all is like stretch out your answers and really remember that as each parent comes by your station to be really confident, speak in a nice loud voice, make eye contact with them, and most important of all, make sure that you really stretch out what you're saying, describe what you're saying so that you're not just talking for 10 seconds and then have nothing else to say. The parents are going to be really excited to see what you created, so you really want to describe it to them well. All right, so we're going to work for the last period of class today to finish up the book projects until the parents arrive. And if anybody finishes early, there's a few things they could do. Number one, if there's time, they could start a second book project. If there's not time, they could ask their teacher. They might be able to help out somebody who's kind of racing to finish, like to help color something or help write a little part or something like that. So helping might be an option. And then if all those are done, then you can read a book from the Bill Peet collection that you haven't read yet. As soon as the parents start to show up at the classroom, your teacher will ask you to stand in the position at your station. And then once everybody's standing in the position at their stations, the teacher will invite the parents into the classroom and tell them which station to go to start. They'll be there for about a minute and a half, and then your teacher will rotate them every minute and a half to different projects in the room so they can see all the projects. Good luck! Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about the Bookworms class itself. So this is a class that kind of combines two things. Number one, so in this class, we're studying the books of a children's author that I really like. His name is Bill Peet. The reason I chose this author is that his stories are, first of all, fun and interesting. They're picture books, but they're very advanced picture books. So they work well as read alouds for third through fifth graders because the writing's pretty advanced, but at the same time, they're still picture books. They're not like novels or chapter books. And in the class, we do two things. Number one, we study 4 different reading comprehension strategies. So we organize this video into 4 periods of 2 hours each. That's one of the ways that's one of the schedules in which we offer this class. And on each day we study one reading comprehension strategy and we read one Bill Peet book as a read aloud. If your schedule is different for the class, like if it's say 6 weeks for 90 minutes, then you're going to have to organize the videos a little bit differently. Like you might have to go through 2/3 of the first video on the first class and then finish up that little bit and go to a little bit of the second video on the second class and just kind of divide it up a bit differently. That should be fine if that's the case. The second thing that we do in the class, besides working on those comprehension strategies and reading the 4 read aloud books, is that we've gathered a bunch of Bill Peet books together, which I will give to you. Some are probably from the library, some are from that we purchased, and we display those for the kids, and they can read those books during some of our quiet reading time, and then they choose to do a book project on one of those books. We have 8 or 9 different projects they can choose from. The idea for all of them is to, all of the projects are pretty engaging. There's things like create a comic book, write a play based on a Bill Peet story, take one of the Bill Peet stories and make it into like a picture book for a kindergartner, so making it much like shorter. And there's other projects like write a monster story similar to Bill Peet's Jethro and Joel story. They can write a newspaper based on the world in the story, The Wump World. They can write a play based on a Bill Peet story. There's a whole bunch of different options. So towards the beginning of the class, we give them some free time to read a couple of the Bill Peet stories that they want to. They can kind of spread out in the classroom. They can lay on the floor and read as long as they're reading and are focused. And then we ask them to pick one of the projects to do. And then in the later classes, they actually work on these projects. And we give you all of the materials for each project, the markers, the poster boards, and the little intro sheets that tell them exactly how to do each project and what the requirements are. During the read aloud portion of the stories, we usually divide the stories into 2. 2 of the books, The Wingding Dilly and Chester the Worldly Pig, are quite lengthy, so they're divided into 2 somewhat long reading sections, and then 2 of the books are much shorter, The Wump World and Jethro and Joel, and those are also divided into 2, but they're much shorter sections. For all of the read alouds, I'm reading the story to the kids, and on the green screen we project the images from the book. So you don't actually have to do any of the read alouds yourself. I'll actually read those to the kids. And throughout the read alouds, I'm usually stopping them to ask them throughout the book to do turn and talks and to work on the skill that we're learning. So For instance, for the final book, Jethro and Joel Were a Troll, we're working on context clues. So throughout the story, I'm stopping and having them practice that context clue strategy that we just learned. For something like for the story, The Wingding Dilly, we're working on making predictions. So throughout that story, they have a making predictions worksheet that you hand them, and then we stop throughout the story and they make the prediction. There are a couple of fun games in the program as well that we mix in. All of the directions to the games are embedded into the video, so I don't think you'll have too much trouble having them play those games. And there are a couple little activities, for instance, at one point when they're learning about author's message and lessons in a story, they have to write a little one-page story that embeds a lesson into the story that they're writing for the reader to understand, or they can do that as a play as well. Again, the video walks you and the students through those activities pretty clearly, so I think you'll feel prepared by the time they get to that point. As I mentioned in the first part of this training, it's important to try to keep the video of me as loud as possible and just keep it engaging. So in this case, they're listening to a read aloud from a video teacher, which is a little bit different from a normal read aloud situation. So we just want them to really focus in on that video. And then in the last part of the final class, so about the last half hour of the final class, we invite parents to come and see the book gallery itself. So the idea here is that you'll take all of the projects as they're finished on the final day and you'll hang them up in different parts of the room. Then when the parents come in, they do kind of like a gallery walk where they start at each of the different stations around the room. So each of the book projects are in a different spot. The students are standing next to their book project, or if they're in a pair, then both kids are next to their book project. And then the parents, as they walk into the room, you put them at different stations throughout the classroom, and the students are going to present their project for about 90 seconds or so, and then you're going to rotate the parents. So what I usually do is I'll say, okay, let's begin. The kids talk for maybe about a minute or so. You can kind of judge like if it's time to move on or not based upon whether the kids are kind of slowing down in what they have to say or not. I usually give a 30-second reminder, so I'm like 30 seconds, and then when time is up, I'll say, okay, finish up and rotate clockwise or something like that, and then help the parents move, because they'll sometimes like not want to move right away if kids are sort of finishing up, but get them to move. They rotate to the next station. And then depending on the number of students and how many are in pairs, you're probably going to do 5 or 6 of those rotations or so. And so that's kind of how you're going to do it. So depending how many students you have in the class, how many pairs of kids are together, you're probably going to have like 5 to 7 rotations of 90 seconds each. So not too terribly long. And each group will rotate around the room, and hopefully everyone will get to see every book project. If it's really dragging, you could maybe cut it off before everyone gets to each project, but just make sure that each parent gets to see their own child present. The last thing is that one of the projects kind of stands apart from the rest. It is to write a play based on a Bill Pete story. So, for instance, kids could work together for their book project to write a play based on, say, Jethro and Joel were a troll. So they would write out the script, and we have specific instructions for them to do that. They write out the script, and then they're going to actually practice performing the play a number of times. Now, there's a couple ways you could do this, and I'm going to leave it up to teachers to decide because there's some different logistical concerns here. One is that you could videotape the play as like their final presentation of the play, and then as parents rotate throughout the book gallery, they could play like a portion of the video on a phone or iPad or what have you to the parents as they rotate. The other option is if you feel like the play's really good and the kids can pull it off, they could actually perform it for everybody as like the final part of the book gallery. I'd only do this, I think, if you feel pretty confident the kids are going to be able to pull it off in front of that big crowd. If you feel like they're being a little silly or like they don't quite have the lines down or it's not going to look very impressive, then I think I'd go with the video option, because there could be a lot of people there and watching, and it's going to be a kind of big finale moment, so we want it to go well. But it could be, a really special and fun way to end the class if you have some pretty dynamic kids who can do their play. So that's another option. You also might have multiple groups doing plays, in which case I think I'd probably go the video route just because you're going to have a hard time fitting in all those plays during the book gallery. And then, as I always say in these videos, the video itself will lead you through much of the program. So as it walks the kids through the program, it will walk you through it as well. So if you have a chance to watch the videos ahead of time before the class, that will be really helpful to you, I think, to feel prepared. If you're in a tight spot and you don't have time to watch it ahead of time, watch it carefully as the kids are watching it, and it should lead you through it pretty clearly. Okay, so good luck with the program, and thank you as always for teaching with us. Okay, so good luck with the program. I think you'll enjoy it.